Signalborn. Chapter 4, The System Opens. Riley Mercer had reached a very specific conclusion about her day. Reality had stopped cooperating. Not bending, not stretching, not becoming strange around the edges. Reality had looked Riley directly in the eyes and decided it was done following its own rules. Because every lock in the machine room had just clicked open at exactly the same time. Not one lock. Not two. All of them. The sound moved through the room in a wave of metallic clicks, sharp and synchronized, like something hidden inside the walls had snapped its fingers. Then silence settled over everything. Dust drifted lazily through the glow of old monitors while cold white light spilled across rusted equipment, tangled cables, and cabinets that absolutely did not belong beneath a public high school. Even the fracture outside the door had gone quiet. That was somehow worse. Riley stood very still, one hand gripping her phone and the other curled into a fist so tight her nails pressed into her palm. The old machine room smelled like hot dust, metal, and electricity. Somewhere overhead, pipes ticked softly as if the building itself was cooling after a fever. Nova stared at the unlocked cabinets lining the walls. Riley stared at Nova. Nova kept staring at the cabinets. Riley raised one hand slowly. So. Nova didn't respond. Riley narrowed her eyes. So. Still nothing. She pointed harder. Nova, I've noticed a pattern here. Whenever something horrifying happens, you stop talking. I would like to formally request fewer silent reactions and more explanations. Nova finally looked over. This is bad. Riley blinked. That is not an explanation. That is a slogan for today. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Maybe explain why the haunted underground bunker just decided to unlock itself because I exist. Nova's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked toward the nearest cabinet and pulled the heavy metal door open. The hinges didn't creak. That bothered Riley more than it should have. Everything else in the room looked old enough to qualify for a museum discount, but the cabinets opened smoothly, silently, perfectly, like they had been maintained, like someone had expected them to be used. Riley followed, because standing alone in a room full of haunted technology felt like a terrible long-term strategy. Inside the cabinet weren't cleaning supplies, or school records, or old computer parts. They were things. Organized things. Rows of silver bands sat inside molded trays. Small black cubes rested beside thin glass panels etched with symbols that glowed faintly when Riley looked at them too long. A set of dark lenses lay in a velvet-lined case, connected to a narrow strip of metal that looked suspiciously like futuristic sunglasses designed by someone who had never actually seen a human face. Riley pointed immediately. Nope. Nova glanced sideways. Nope what? Those are crime objects. Nova frowned. Crime objects. Absolutely. Nobody stores legal things in mystery cabinets under a school. Nova ignored her and reached into the cabinet. Riley crossed her arms. Honestly, being ignored was becoming a recurring operational issue, and she did not appreciate it. Nova picked up one of the silver bands and examined the symbols along its edge. Her face was tight with concentration. She looked older when she wasn't annoyed. Not by much, but enough that Riley noticed. Nova couldn't have been more than 16 or 17, but she carried herself like someone who had spent too much time preparing for disasters and not enough time being a normal teenager. Riley watched her hands. You know what all this stuff is? Nova didn't look up. Some of it. That means yes. It means some of it. You're doing that thing again. What thing? The selective answer thing. It's like talking to a customer service robot with trauma. Nova gave her a flat look. Do you ever stop? Historically, no. For half a second, the corner of Nova's mouth twitched. It was barely there, almost invisible, but Riley saw it. Then a sound came from the sealed door behind them. Tap. Both girls froze. The sound was small, too small, a soft knock against metal. Riley slowly turned her head toward the door. Nova. Nova didn't move. Riley lowered her voice. Nova. Still nothing. Nova. What? Riley pointed toward the sealed door. Please tell me nightmare monsters knock before entering. Nova's expression changed immediately. No. Silence. Tap. 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 3 slow knocks. Patient knocks. Not angry, not violent, patient. Riley felt something cold move down her spine. The fracture had smashed through doors, screamed through walls, and ripped metal apart like wet cardboard. It didn't knock politely. Nova backed away from the door. Riley saw that too. Nova had been scared before, but this was different. This wasn't surprise. This was recognition again. Riley swallowed, worse than the fracture. Nova didn't take her eyes off the door. Much worse. The lights dimmed slightly. Not enough to go dark. Just enough for the room to feel like it had leaned closer to listen. Riley's phone vibrated in her hoodie pocket. She almost didn't look. Almost. Unfortunately, curiosity had betrayed human beings for thousands of years, and Riley appeared determined to honor that legacy. She pulled the phone out carefully. The screen displayed 3 lines of text. New entity detected. Classification unknown. Do not open. Riley stared at the words. Okay, wow. Nova looked over. What? Riley slowly turned the screen toward her. Nova looked once. Only once. Then she looked back at the door. Move. Riley frowned. No explanation. No. You people are weirdly committed to mystery. Nova shoved the silver band into Riley's hand. Wear this. Riley looked down. The band felt cool and heavier than it looked. It wasn't a bracelet exactly, but it wasn't not a bracelet either. Tiny seams ran through the metal in patterns that made her eyes want to slide away. This feels like one of those moments where a character in a movie puts on the obvious cursed artifact and everyone watching yells at the screen, Riley said. Wear it. I feel like we're skipping multiple liability conversations. Riley. Nova said her name differently that time. Not annoyed. Not impatient. Serious. Riley stopped joking. At least for 3 seconds. She slid the band onto her wrist. The instant the metal touched her skin, blue light raced across its surface. Symbols spun around the band so fast they blurred. A cold sensation sank into Riley's wrist, then shot up her arm like static under her skin. She yelped and jerked her arm back. It bit me. It did not bite you. It spiritually bit me. Nova stepped closer and grabbed Riley's wrist before Riley could rip the band off. Don't remove it. I wasn't going to remove it. I was going to respectfully throw it into another zip code. Don't. Blue light unfolded above Riley's wrist, thin and sharp, forming a small projection in the air. Words assembled themselves from tiny shifting fragments. User DT. Riley Mercer. Signal status, unstable. Warning. 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 Riley stared at it. I dislike repeated warning messages. Nova wasn't joking now. She leaned closer, reading the projection with growing concern. Riley didn't like that. She liked Nova annoyed. Annoyed Nova had attitude. Annoyed Nova felt like someone who knew what she was doing. Scared Nova made Riley feel like the floor was about to disappear. Again. Nova looked up. What's your synchronization percentage? Riley pulled out her phone. You know, I was really hoping we could avoid more haunted phone metrics. Riley. Fine. She looked down. Then blinked. The number was gone. No percentage. No slow increase. No glowing decimal. Only 1 line remained on the screen. Synchronization complete. For a second, Riley didn't understand what she was reading. Then she looked at Nova. Nova's face had gone completely pale. Riley slowly turned the phone toward her. The number's gone. Nova stared at the screen. Riley waited. Nothing. Okay, seriously. Nova didn't move. Nova. Still nothing. Nova. No response. Nova. Nova whispered, "No, no, 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 no." Riley frowned despite the fear gathering behind her ribs. "Why are you doing the Riley thing now?" Nova looked at her like she wasn't sure Riley should still be standing there. Nobody synchronizes this fast. Riley tried to laugh. It came out wrong. Bad. Nova's gaze flicked to the band on Riley's wrist, then back to her face. "Riley, most people take months to reach stable synchronization. Some take years, some never do. And even then, complete synchronization without training can overload the nervous system." Riley stared. "That sounds like medical words." "It means people die." Silence filled the room. Real silence. Heavy silence. Riley suddenly became aware of her own heartbeat. Her hands felt too warm. Her mouth felt dry. The room seemed to tilt slightly, though she knew it wasn't moving. People die. That phrase landed differently than everything else. Monsters were terrible. Haunted phones were terrible. Secret tunnels under school were deeply terrible. But people die had weight. Riley looked down at her hands as if they might already be changing. "Am I dying?" Nova didn't answer fast enough. Riley looked up. "Nova." "I don't know." That was worse than yes. Riley pressed her lips together and nodded once, because if she opened her mouth immediately, she wasn't sure what would come out. A joke, probably, or a scream, maybe both. She decided neither would strengthen the current strategic alignment. The knocking stopped. Both girls turned toward the door. Nothing moved. No impact. No scream. No scraping claws. Just stillness. Riley whispered, "Why did it stop?" Nova's hand tightened around the black cube she had taken from the cabinet. "Because it knows the system opened." Riley looked at her. "What system?" Nova hesitated. Riley stepped closer. No more mystery voice. What system?" Nova looked around the room. "This place isn't just storage, it's a dormant node." A node. A signal access point. Old, probably buried before the school was built over it. Riley stared. "You're telling me my school was built on magic Wi-Fi?" Nova closed her eyes briefly. "That is the worst possible way to say it." "But not wrong." Nova didn't answer. Riley pointed. "I hate that not answering is becoming a yes." The monitors flickered again. For a heartbeat, Riley saw lines across them. Not text, not symbols. A map maybe, or a web of connections stretching outward in bright threads. Some reached up. Some went down. Some spread far beyond the room in every direction. Then her phone vibrated. New words appeared. Access granted. Initial system, release available. Would you like to proceed? Two symbols appeared beneath the message. One blue. One white. Riley stared at the screen. Nova stared at the screen. Riley slowly pointed. "I feel like this question has consequences." Nova looked absolutely terrified. "Do not touch it." Riley nodded immediately. "Oh, absolutely." The blue symbol pulsed once. The lights dimmed. The white symbol pulsed. The walls vibrated. Riley took one careful step back. "Nova." "Don't." "I'm not. Don't even breathe near it." "That feels dramatic." The bracelet vibrated. Not the phone. The bracelet. Words appeared above Riley's wrist. Tiny words. Words only she could see. "Emergency override accepted." Riley froze. A soft tone rang through the room. Not loud. Not mechanical. Almost gentle. The cabinets along the walls opened wider on their own. The monitors shifted from white to blue. The black cube in Nova's hand sparked. Nova dropped it with a sharp curse, and it hit the floor, unfolding into thin mechanical legs that skittered backward into the shadows. Riley stared. Did the cube just become a bug? Nova didn't answer. She was staring at Riley's wrist. Riley followed her gaze. The bracelet was no longer blue. It had turned white. Bright, clean, impossible white. The same color as the lines Riley had seen inside the world. "Oh," Riley whispered. Nova took a step back. The door behind them groaned. Not from impact. From unlocking. A line of white light crawled around the doorframe, cutting through Nova's blue seal as if it wasn't there. Nova grabbed Riley's arm. "We have to leave." "Through where?" Nova looked around. For the first time, she didn't seem to know. That terrified Riley more than the door. A new sound filled the room. A heartbeat. Not Riley's. Not Nova's. Deeper. Slower. Coming from the walls. The old speakers crackled overhead, and the same calm female voice from before returned. "Emergency override accepted." Nova whispered, "No." Primary candidate recognized. Riley felt the air tighten around her. Releasing initial safeguard. The room went black. For 1 second, Riley saw nothing. Then, in the darkness beneath the floor, something opened its eyes. Not 2 eyes. Dozens. White points blooming one after another in the black. Nova's hand clamped over Riley's wrist. "Do not speak," she whispered. Riley's phone lit up. One final message appeared. "Welcome back, Riley Mercer." And somewhere in the dark, something whispered her name like it had been waiting a very long time.